Okay, guys, want to try to analyze Jen Kirkland shared a dream. This girl, a comedian, shared a dream about the prince. Not about the prince. I'm sorry, I just woke up, so I'm sorry. I just look a bit tired. I literally just woke. I had just had my coffee. Okay, so we're gonna try to analyze this dream using the Jungian method. I just hope that when I was lying in so-called, I was lying on my bed and I saw it when I just woke up. So I haven't really gone through all the symbols, but it's just an initial analysis, just for fun.
I'm here to tell you about a dream I had, which I know is the most boring thing ever, and this is how we're going to get through it.
Boring.
It was so real that I believe it was real, and when I tell you the story, you are not.
It was so real that she believes it is real. That's a good starting point. When a dream is such a strong dream, it requires immediate attention, like nightmares, and this one, you can already tell she would probably have a special experience.
Not allowed to listen, knowing it's a dream. You have to listen as though I'm telling you a thing that really happened to me.
Okay.
I am in a building. I don't know what building it is.
Okay, she says, I'm in a building. I don't know what building it is. So in the dream, you're already in a certain psychological world. So it could be psychological represented in you, which you've never been, a part of your psyche, which you've never been through, which your first time experience. It could be also anticipation of an experience you might have. But she says it's in the building. In a building, we don't know her association to the building, but in a building usually tend to be people that has high expectation usually have building dreams. It's the masculine principle. It's high up. It's something which is solid. So it's the logos principle. It's the father principle basically of the world of rules and regulation and so on. And she says, I'm in a building. Okay, we have to listen more about this building.
It looks like a building I've been in before, but it's a little different.
Okay, she says it looks like a building she has been on before, but it looks a bit different. It's very common to dream of a house which is your house, but looks a bit different. So because it's a symbol of one aspect of yourself. For example, I dreamt one time I was inside my apartment, but the window was really small, and so it means that my ego essentially is too narrow. Like I have a small window, I am too closed. I need to be more open.
I don't know what city it is. It doesn't matter.
I don't know what city it is. It does not matter. So she's going into part of herself which is pretty much most likely never been before. It's a anticipation of a part of herself which she never had. A good example is paradise. People want to go to heaven. It's a anticipation of something they might something what will happen afterwards. An ego that you have the paradise. In Jehovah's Witness, they think the paradise will be on earth. In other Christianity, they think that paradise is after you're dead. Is at anticipation of a future ideal state. But she says, I'm in a city which I've never been before. Psychological speaking, she's in a place in herself which she's never before, which is very interesting because this is where you find the good stuff. Is this is a dream of, I can already tell, of widening of conscious awareness. So all dreams are more or less about that. Not all, but but this is how do you say this? This is anticipation of an experience, most likely, which is she will never forget. That's why she doesn't forget the dream.
I take a giant elevator. I've been in this elevator before.
She takes a giant elevator. Elevator is a transition between psychological states. This is a giant elevator, so it's room for a lot of psychological content and energy. She's already in a special place.
Looks like an elevator that I took when I was in Australia at this theater. Oh, I recognize that. And then I go into
Australia. It's if you look at the world map, Australia is big. It has a lot of so we don't really know her association to Australia, and that would really help to analyze the dream. But because we don't know her association to Australia, we can assume, we can have certain assumption basically. But whatever it is an island. We can all agree on that. It's an island, somewhat remote for others. A big place with Australia's everything, all the weather sort of. I don't know if it snows there, but like they have all the different animals. So it's lively. It's warm. It's a warm, lively place. Obviously, if she has a cold association to Australia, it would be a cold place in herself. But the way she tells the dream is it's more of the positive part. Okay.
To a downstairs part, and I go, I don't recognize this. And I'm sitting there, and I'm at some kind of comedy festival, it would seem, and Prince is backstage, and he's just sitting there, and there's a bunch of like comedy boys around, and I don't know these guys either. And I'm thinking,
okay, so she's in Australia, some place. She's in a comedy. So comedy is a place of trickster. If you know the god of trickster, it's trickster in mythology is the one that can communicate between, that could travel between the real world and the world of gods. God Hermes is somewhat of a trickster figure. He was the only god that could travel between two different worlds. Psychological speaking, is an energy in one person that could transist between two psychological state in two different completely world, literally. You see this in fairy tales, for example, when the girl discovers a new world, and so on. And so she's in the place of trickster comedy, and comedy is also a place where you can carry psychological energy between two different points. What I mean by that, if you look at comedy, they are really good of taking the shadow, the things people have denied in themselves, and reveal it out in a way which they can digest. You see, if I say to a person, you're an asshole, you're stupid, you're narrow-minded, and all of this, he can't digest his experience. But comedian, many of them, not all, it depends of what type of comedy they do, are really good of blurting out the shadow of the world into digestible manner. So this is so you can see the role of the trickster in comedy. The clown, the trickster, has this tendency to transits between two different worlds. And also in the before as well, and when you go to travel, you have this heap stone. This heap stone was for basically to give luck to travelers, basically. Okay, I don't want to go too depth, because I can talk about this for a long time.
He probably assumes like Dave Chappelle's gonna be here. Like you all know Prince. He probably saw a sign that said comedy, and he's like, I bet my friends are there, and then like he sees people that look like like meltdown people, and he was just probably sitting there confused. And so I came in, and he just looked at me, and he turned, and he smiled like this, and he goes,
Okay, she's talking about Prince, the superstar Prince. The thing with Prince, he's an androgynous figure. He's a union between masculine and the feminine energy. We see this with Michael Jackson. We see this also with the images of Jesus. Jesus has this long hair, this gown, but he also has this beard. So he's like a union of masculine and feminine energy. And so this union of masculine and feminine energy, this androgynous figure, could symbolize two things. One is that it could be in a state of unconscious. So what I mean by that is Adam and Eve, for example, in different variation of the story, Adam was taking out from Adam. In some variation is Adam or Eve was taking out from Adam, and the opposite. But they were still in paradise. They were still in a world which they are not aware. They didn't know nakedness when they were in paradise. They're still in a childish, paradisical state in which there is no consciousness. And so, and they were thrown out from the paradise, basically. And so you can be in paradise, you can either be totally unconscious, you're still an animal, or you could go back after a further development. You can go back to the paradise in which you're going back to wholeness with a conscious state. And so we see this in mythology, like in the Filipino mythology, Egyptian mythology, in the Judaism. Many religion has the same thing, which there is division between division between masculine and the feminine principle, and this division creates awareness, a consciousness. And so yeah, so what I mean by that, this is a anticipation of wholeness. She's seeing her, what she's essentially saying here, to simplify, is her other half, her other masculine figure, which most likely is still connected to wholeness. But to simplify, I'll just say her other half, her inner masculine figure. In Jungian terms, they would call this figure an animus figure, the inner masculine of a girl. For a man is anima, the inner feminine of a man is called anima. But she's meeting this figure now.
What's a podcast? Now, in this true story that absolutely happened, I don't remember what I said, but it was sort of a combination of something that explained a podcast and completely dismissed a podcast. And it made him laugh, and he went, and he said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Jen Kirkland." And he said, "Jen Kirkland, you're fun." And then I just sat there, and then he said, "I'll be right back. These guys asked me to do a podcast." And so that's why he was asking. And so he came back in the room and he said, "I told the guys I don't want to do their podcast, that Jen Kirkland should do their podcast." And they said they don't want Jen Kirkland to do their podcast. So
you see, I think it's funny because what I see here is her interaction between her other half. You see, her inner masculine figure, and the inner masculine figure when we grow up, we are taking it from father, brother, all the strong masculine figure, or it could be negative figure as well. And we how do you say this? We take up in ourself, basically. And what I'm seeing here is it's still Prince, it's still masculine, but it has a superstar quality. He has also some feminine aspect to it. But what I see is her interaction with that energy in herself, basically. So her inner masculine is colored by the figure out in her outside world, but it's still her inner masculine connected with an initial state of wholeness. So what is initial state of wholeness? That's a thing, like, girls or even guys, people want to a healthy functioning individual wants to achieve wholeness, whether they like it or not. It's just where the psychological energy goes towards. And we have anticipation of wholeness. Like, for example, if you fall in love, you don't want to eat, you don't want to sleep, you just want to engage with that person, and you have so much energy. And so this energy comes from within, basically, and people can either fall in love with a work, a person, or whatever. And so in that initial state, their wholeness is still projected out into the outside world. So how can we achieve this initial state? By bringing this energy towards ourselves. So in a sense, you're no longer dependent upon people outside. So when you meet a person that is whole, a whole person has taken all the energy from the outside and now carrying it themselves. So other people are no longer bad, because they know they have badness inside of them. And so that is the integration of shadow. And so if one has integrated for a guy, if they integrated their inner feminine, they usually are more open-minded, they are more receptive. and so on. And I'm not saying feminine just belongs to girl. That's feminine also belongs to men. Feminine energy. So you can have. This is we talk about energy. We're not talking about gender as such. Because I have met girls which is more manly than me. So they have more masculinity than guys. And in many ways. So we are not talking about this is very important, not gender. So there is a story in Sri Lanka is that when Adam and Eve was thrown out from the paradise, it took 30 years for them to find each other. And this is anticipation of wholeness when one person becomes whole again. And so she's meeting her other half, but she's now experiencing it in her dreams, which is common, to meet other parts of yourself, not so much in the outside world, but in the dreams where your ego is dimmed down, basically. But okay, so now we'll see her interaction with her other half.
Gonna go do their podcast, but you're gonna come with me, Jen Kirkland. And he grabbed my hand, and we went into the theater where the three dudes are on stage hosting a podcast. And I walk in holding Prince's hand. And he sits me in the front row like a prince does to his princess. And then he gets up and he starts fucking with these guys who did not want to interview me but want to interview him. So every question they ask him, they'd be like, Prince, what do you think of this? And then he would turn and look at me in the front row and go, I only care what Jen Kirkland thinks about that. And then he'd keep looking at me.
This is a good. So she only thinks what. This is a. So you can say her inner masculine only cares for her own experience in a sense. So those people, a different person could be public opinion. So how do you say this? So her inner masculine I think feel like are not so that doesn't really care too much about other people, if that makes sense. Because he only wants to care about her experience and her. So you can okay, we need to listen more.
And he'd look back and they'd go, oh, what do you think of this? And he'd go, I only care what Jen Kirkland thinks of that.
So I can already tell she as a person does not, she doesn't give too much care about other stuff. At least her inner masculine figure are not too affected by other people's opinions. So, in other words, I would expect if there's some newspaper coming about bad things about her, she would be like, I don't care, like just throw the newspaper, I don't really care. So we are seeing her psychological state, when she start explaining her dream, we are literally seeing her inner workings, her inner dynamic, what's going on in her mind. A lot of it is unconscious. What I mean by that is that, this is what Jung says. He says the integration of anima or animus is a masterpiece, because it's such few people that can integrate their other half, because it's so far away from their conscious awareness, but it's still working in the background. It's still, how many minutes of the day are you aware? Most of the time we are on automatic mode, believe it or not. It's very, we're only aware if something bad happens or something like that, where we stop to actually start and reflect and think. I mean, I think personally, I spend most of my day thinking, but even that's if you only do that, even that's a state of unawareness. And so so integration of your other half, your other energy is a masterpiece. It's such a difficult things to do, and very few people can achieve such state. Okay.
Last question, Prince, if you could meet God, what would you ask him?
See, already there. So for a girl, the other half is a gateway through the symbol of wholeness, God, basically. God is symbolized in many cultures as circle, the symbol of wholeness, where all different parts of oneself, all the scattered part of oneself is integrated. And so this is what happened to Osiris. Osiris is a symbol of the god self. He was scattered and he was sent to different, basically was scattered. And so integration of different parts of oneself um, is a symbol of wholeness. It's going back to the paradise, but this time with a conscious awareness. And so you can already see this is a higher masculine figure of herself. You have different stages of development, and we can already see this masculine figure in her dream is connected. There is a union, androgynous, and so this is a marrying of Aphrodite and Hermes, and they got the when Hermes and Aphrodite got a child. It was Hermaphroditus or Aphroditus or Hermaphroditus, where there's a union of masculine and feminine, and this energy is one that connects to the symbol of wholeness, the yin and yang, which becomes a circle.
I'd ask him why he never put Jen Kirkland in front of me before.
Mm.
And the audience gasped, and then he grabbed my hand and he whispered to me, "It's on you and me forever."
You see, it's on you and me forever. So the masculine figure is now pushing toward her conscious. It's like a masculine figure no longer wants to leave her, basically. This is an integration. There is a union of two opposing energy here, and the union is welcomed by the ego because she grabs her hand. She grabs Prince's hand. So you can see there is a readiness of her to integrate her other half. In some people there is no longer that readiness, and so they keep the whole life they are running from themselves, basically. But this girl, she is not running from herself. She is moving towards her inner other half. So this is anticipation of becoming whole, and which is very weird because she's a comedian, but she talks about dream, and she even says about, I want you to listen to it as it happened in real life. You see, this is what happens in myth and fairy tales. You listen to it as it's in real life because they are real story. It's a story of our inner programming, if you like. It has a universal aspect which touch everyone. And even when Carl Jung used to, for example, talk about in his lecture, all of the students often think that he was talking about them because Carl Jung, he analyzed about 2,000 to 3,000 dreams every year, and so he was so in touch with the deeper layer of the unconscious. So when you touch the unconscious, you touch sort of a chord in everyone. You start playing the chord of everyone because you are in touch with the programming of one's individual. But the programming of one's individual also reflects all individuals because we are humans. And so this is the paradox of being human. We are all the same, but we also all are different because we have to become individual, undivided, basically. Okay, it's getting long, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna analyze this a bit quicker.
And we went backstage, made out, and then he said to me, "So."
That's what I'm saying. This is a union. They made out, basically. There is an integration of two opposing energies.
"I'm in love with you," and I said, "Me too." And he said, "Would you give up everyone in your life for me?" And I said, "Yeah."
This is dangerous. Can be dangerous. What I mean by that is that luckily I feel like this is more a positive masculine, but you have a negative masculine. You can meet girl which is very opinionated. When you talk to them, it's like walking through glasses, especially for guys talking, because it's because they are most likely animus possessed. You have girl which is anima possessed, but you have girl which is animus possessed, and this girl, talking to them is like walking on glasses. They're gonna attack you or everything opinion you have, and they will just attack you. I have met few of them in my life, and talking to one, whatever I do, okay, think about this way. When you're in a relationship, does it come a point in your time where you're arguing about everything? You're arguing about the broom was in the wrong place. Like, that is no longer you. This is a conversation between the anima and the animus. It's no longer you. A conversation between two different programming, basically. And but if you have a negative animus that has been triggered in you, in fairy tales it could be symbol of bluebird. Bluebird takes the girl and kills every girl he kills everyone that comes, basically. So he isolate the girls in this fantasy land, which she can never go back into reality, basically. And Prince says that, we don't care about everyone else than me. But we have to see what he really means by that, because if that is so, this woman, her development now is just towards becoming whole. It means she will totally disconnect from other people and such. And but we have to see what effect it has. Is this effect towards wholeness, which I think in this case is a positive figure. It's not I cannot see there's a negative figure in it yet, because this animus is in her comedic place. If this animus was far in the woods and tell her, come be with me but never go with other else, she could end up in a premonition that she would be in a state of total isolation, which can be a dangerous state. This is what I mean when the dream is so powerful. It tells a person's dynamic. It tells about the future, basically. But because this figure is in her comedy, in her place where she is, she's doing what she loves, basically. Now there is already an indication of that. Anyways, I'm gonna stop. We'll move on.
And it was very easy to do. And he was like, your parents, your friends. And I was like, fuck them all. I hate these people. Like, I don't even care if he turns out to be
okay. So your parents, your friends. So I think this is more a positive, because parents are a symbol of the collective baggage you have taken with you. Often people have never become their individual self. They have only become what parents wants them to be, or the society. The parents is often a symbol of societal value, and if that hinders your development, yes, you should disconnect from them, but not disconnect that you shouldn't have a relationship with a parent. So parents could be a symbol of the collective value, not necessarily your real parents as such. But anyways,
fucking nightmare. By the way, in real life at this point he's dead, but I'm like, I don't care if this doesn't make sense. And so he said, you're coming to Paisley Park. I said, of course I am. And so then I woke up the next morning and I hadn't opened my eyes yet, and I was like, here I am in Paisley Park. This is gonna be amazing once I open my eyes.
Park. This is I don't know the park thingy. I don't know, but like there could be a modern version of the paradise. Like I said, it's a experience of what it means to be whole. Paradise is in the initial state of wholeness. That's why you see in Jehovah's Witness, they think that paradise is gonna be on earth. Another religion think when they die is gonna be. What it means essentially, when the ego personality dies, when your ego when you realize it's more to you than the surviving part of yourself or your identity or something. That's why we see images of paradise. We see where humans and animals there is no, lions are roaming around. So your desire, inner passion is no longer against you or swallowing or devouring you up. The person has become a whole. So meaning one is connected to different parts of oneself and become conscious, aware of it. So we have to understand paradise as two state, either as totally childish, unconscious state. But if you have been thrown out from paradise and you can wrestle with the world's affair, like your shadow, your inner devil, your integration of your inner masculine figure, and you have divorced yourself from your, in her case, her parents, which is collective values, so she can become her own self basically. So this park, I don't know what kind of park it is, or it's just a name for a place, but look at her. She's in paradise, literally.
My new life, and I opened my eyes and I was just in my room and I was like, what the fuck? No! 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 And I started sobbing.
See, she's been thrown back to this Adam and Eve, thrown back from away from the paradise again, and now she is waking up.
Canceled. I had meetings and I had things to do that day. I canceled everything, and I laid in bed and cried. Not because he died. I was already over that. Because it wasn't to be that I could give up my life for Prince. I mean, I was like, this life sucks. What is this, an apartment? Oh, God. What's this phone full of phone numbers and people that care about me? Oh, fuck them. And I realized that I'm right to have depression and anxiety. My life is awful.
See, when Adam and Eve was thrown out from the paradise, they become aware of themselves. They could feel pain. You know, she's re-experienced this. She's re-experiences this this thing now.
To that dream, there is nothing good about waking up every day. It is a disaster.
This is a problem with people. Most people don't want to be conscious, because to be aware you would need to feel pain. You see, most people want to be in a childish state. They don't want to feel pain. They want to be in a safe space. You know, that's why we see in many developed country, you know, they they are willing to give up their freedom to live in a programmed world. Basically, everything is put already ready for them. You know, at school, people are mostly developed to work, or not developed, but like there's an education aspect. But you know, education comes with industrialization. You know, it was to work for a specific task, not to become their own leader, or to become fully themselves. You know, it was to do a specific task. But then you're on this bandwagon of school. After school, you go to this not necessarily home, but other, you know, another program before you go home. And after, when you finish with this programming, you go to work, another program, and but everything has become programmed, rules and regulation, the lights and the street. It's just so much program, and so people that I don't know. If I lived in Europe. I lived in Norway. I lived in UK. I've lived in Denmark. But I lived in Philippines, and now I live in the Philippines. The Philippines is a developing country, but in the Philippines, it's not uncommon for me to see people start dancing or singing. Or, like, I don't see people singing at work in the European country. I just see this in the Philippines. Like, people are starting dance. There's not so much restriction in their spirit, if that makes sense. Obviously, there's developing countries, so they might end up going to hospital. People will die for stupid reasons, but still, their spirit is still there. Is some spirit that's lingering. Like, it is still not in a program, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, so all country has their positive and negative. There's certain things I don't like in the Philippines, to be honest, which I like in Europe. Like, yeah, many things, but one thing they have in Philippines, is because they are so close to life and death. For many of them in province, life and death for them is a almost weekly thing, basically. Anyways, we're gonna watch.
The only reason I don't kill myself is because I'm afraid of death. Do you understand? And so I wanted to have that dream again, and I couldn't. And then I read something online. Prince doesn't believe in time or space.
Ah, oof. Okay, we're almost done. Oh my gosh, 34 minutes. I'm sorry, guys. And I'm even holding myself. Prince, and the first thing she reminded her, Prince does not believe in time and space. what do the Buddhism says? Time is space is an illusion, basically. Because the thing is that her inner masculine is connected to the sense of wholeness, to the sense of totality, the revolving wheel that keeps turning by itself, basically. Um, I don't know if you had this mandala dream, but mandala dream is this world wheel in many cultures. It keeps turning by itself. There is no one's turning it. It's an attribute of the image of God. The image of God we tend to put outside. This is, I think, the mistake of some religion. But in most religion, they understand this revolving wheel of life basically is within everyone. This is very important to know. Within everyone there is this divine force. So I'm not saying everyone is God, what I'm saying is that there is this self-revolving wheel that will never die. This is very important to know. There's some aspect of ourselves in everyone which will never die. I'm not saying you're gonna still be yourself when you die. I cannot make that statement. But what I can say, and which is in all religion I would say, or all culture, most 99% of them, is that there is a thing which will never die, and this is the self-revolving wheel, and this is the, and that's why Prince was a good symbol in her dream. That's why the psyche knows this. The ego does not know this because the ego is still under development, but the psyche already knows this because the psyche is both asleep and awake. It's the force that is creating you is also asleep but is also awake. It's smaller than small, bigger than big. That's there's a one description. It's smaller than small, it's bigger than big. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna okay, we are nearly done.
I was like, that's interesting. And then someone tweeted me, did you know that the week before you performed at the Melbourne Arts Centre, Prince was there? There's only one elevator to the green room. He was in it the week before. He doesn't believe in time and space. His energy was still in the elevator. Mine got in. We're in some... You see, the dream really happened.
Yeah, it happens for everyone. What she said, you see, the dream really happens. The dream happens for everyone, and we are all living her dream. In case it's a masculine because she's a girl. For me, it's feminine. It's to connecting with the world of feminine, with the world of the unconscious, the world of feminine energy. What is feminine energy in society? It's society, university. It's the world of intuition. It's the world of the unconscious. The world of the body. It's the world of all of this, and it's funny. She says, "See, she was always there." So this is also another description of religion. They say God is always there if you take the time to look, and yeah, for her is it's always there. It's never been. It never left you. Paradise or God never left in that sense. The initial state of wholeness never left. It's always there, but one has to be ready to see it. And many times one has to destroy one's ego. We could be a dangerous state, but wounding is a part of one's development. We have to become. Ego has to break. The egg has to break, just enough for the archetypal forces to enter, to experience, to develop. But if your egg cracks too early or it cracks too much, it's a dangerous state. End up in a psychiatry, or you can never. Some people never sort of never can fully recover, and so they never has this to become their fully true self. And so your ego has to crack, and Yeah, and this is one of my analysts. My analyst, he says, I don't think there is other way than uh, to experience than to basically cracking one's ego, but it has to be ready and yeah, it has to be in the correct time. The wounding has to come in the correct time, and so wounding is initial part of becoming conscious, being thrown out of the paradise. She re-experienced the wholeness in her dream, and she felt how it needs. And that's the thing, you know, you don't need to wait for heaven to experience wholeness. This is the we are projecting so much things in the outside world. We're waiting for something. There's no point to wait, you know. It's everything is already there. What one needs to do is to capture that thing which is already there. It depends, you know, what kind of person you are and so on. But what I'm trying to say is that we are putting so much energy into other people and environment instead of integrating it into ourselves. Once we integrating into ourselves, it means that we can experience wholeness. We can experience the paradisical state, basically, but this time in a conscious awareness. So you don't need to wait for heaven. Heaven's gonna be there either way, but you can experience heaven already. This is very important. Oh my gosh, are you guys seeing my messy? I'm sorry, I know it's messy. No, come on. Well, you will need to, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Either ways, you just have to see. Okay, guys, bye.